Welcome to the Parenting Powerhouse podcast. I aim to empower moms to confidently bring peace and calm back into the home while tackling the challenges of raising a kid with ADHD and ASD. When moms tackle challenges from the perspective of strength and positivity, we regain our authenticity and can do anything. This episode is going to focus on giving you tips on how to handle talking back, blaming, and sometimes just plain nastiness we get from our kids. My name is Tara Travell. I am a social emotional learning specialist and a mom with ADHD, parenting a teen with ASD level 1. Okay, so teenagers are a whole new species of child, right? Then we compound that with ADHD and or ASD. And what do we get? Double trouble. But really, the conventional methods that we have always believed and imagined of dealing with a teen just aren't going to work for us. So the first thing to do is forget about all of our natural instincts and learn a new perspective in order to manage these kids. So I guess the first thing we have to ask is, why? What is the difference? And why can't my kid just follow the rules? Or why isn't my kid learning because we have gone over this so many times? Why is my kid just so angry at me no matter what I do, even if it just seems like I'm trying to do everything right? Well, if we understand and we don't just assume, but pretty accurately know what the reason why is, it will really help us to approach this situation differently. Isn't that kind of what we need? Like something different that just might work or get us closer to working? Well, because whatever we are doing right now, it's not working. So what do we have to lose, right? Well, my grandson loves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch. And he is so sweet and so nice. He just cares about everybody around him. And he's really concerned about those kids that have peanut allergies. So because of that, I found sunflower butter and decided, why don't I get some and just have him try it, because this might be a good alternative. So he tried it with jelly and he really liked it. And so first things first, I had to recognize that this was a win, right? Trying something new, even if it was because he came up with it. I wasn't just asking him to try something new. He came up with this problem and now a solution was found. So maybe that's one of the reasons. Either way, it's a win, right? So we always have to find a win because, trust me, it can really help you get through so many confrontations with your kids if you just take these wins, find them anywhere you can, even write them down in a little notebook in case you're just like so fed up and you're like, oh my gosh, nothing's going right. And you go back to that book and you read some wins. So this is what I did. I went ahead and I put a sun butter and jelly sandwich in his lunch. And when he came home from school that day, he was furious with me about the sandwich. He was yelling, he threw his backpack down, stomped off, and just yelled at me that it was all my fault that he had this in his sandwich and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So when this behavior happens, I've kind of learned, and it has taken me a very long time and a lot of work on myself to do this, but I let it go until emotions are calm enough to address the real problem. But to tell you the truth, I am always better at regulating my own emotions when I am rested and when I'm not in the middle of something and being interrupted. So really what we have to do is let's analyze this behavior and the consequences. So from my point of view, he's yelling at me, he's taking his frustration out on me, and honestly, it's for something that is not really a big deal and something I actually did right, or maybe it was just okay. So how does this make me feel? Well, I feel like crap, right? And then I get defensive and I might get angry and upset. And although this is not okay to make me feel that way, what is his intention really? So can I take that time, that step back and think, okay, what's going on here? Well, was it really his intention? I really can't imagine that it was that calculated. Because a kid's brain is not developed enough to really rationalize and regulate emotions yet, especially when they are 3 to 6 years emotionally behind a typical brain. So, why this big outburst for a seemingly very small problem? In order to do this, I really needed to take his perspective, put myself in his shoes, which isn't easy. That's hard. Because remember, I'm feeling something too. So, first, he is still functioning in a fight, flight, or freeze mode. He's not going to rationalize his feelings. He is only going to react. I have to keep reminding myself that. So then, well, I need to take a look into consideration, the long school day and what kind of toll it is actually taking on him. The ADHD and ASD brain are really working so much harder than a typical brain. That's another thing to remember. And actually, this is probably a really good discussion for another episode, because to really go into detail and get into this, I think it would take way long. So let's do that for another episode. Stay tuned. So thinking about that, well, he has probably really held it together all day long. And when he comes home, he has attached to like one thing that he can remember that he feels comfortable enough letting go. And that's because he trusts me and he feels closest to me. So that doesn't excuse it, and that doesn't make it okay. But that's one thing that he is able to kind of think about and attach to during the day. Because there could be tons of things that happen, and maybe he just can't even put it together. So how can we look at this as we're analyzing it? Well, maybe as a cry for help, because all of this is built up throughout the day, possibly. Different things are going on in his brain that he just can't organize. With executive skill difficulties, it can't be organized. So, all right, if we look at it as a cry for help, then we want to help, right? We want to help him make sense of the hard things that are going on throughout the day. But this isn't the time to do that yet. So just at this time, I need to remember that, okay, I can't take this personally. It really has nothing to do with me personally. It is his misconception or misperception or whatever it is that he's not understanding and can't help himself at this point. So I let him have some time, and this also gives me the chance to take a little time and calm down myself. And this is a time where I remind myself that this is not a personal attack. This is not about me. It's about him and helping him understand something for himself. So putting ourselves in a better place, in the right state of mind, is going to be the biggest part of all of this in order to successfully tackle a problem, this problem in particular. So now that I've calmed down and I know and I understand it's not about me, and I truly understand this now, I can maybe analyze this a little differently. It's really not about the sandwich, is it? Because he liked it and he ate it. It wasn't in his lunchbox. But maybe it is the fact that he did not expect the sandwich to be in his lunch. I didn't tell him. I just kind of assumed that because he tried it and liked it, that he would expect it to be in his lunch the next day. I may have even said something about buying this for lunches, but did not bring it up again and let him know, clearly that I was going to put this sandwich in his lunch. So this is the type of disconnect that our kids with autism have. There are so many gaps in understanding and being able to make connections that the world and situations just become really confusing. The ADHD brain sometimes acts similarly. A lot of times their brain is working so quickly that they miss these connections. So once I realized this, and I gave the situation a good, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, then I went up to talk to him about the sandwich. And I validated the point that maybe he didn't expect it. And I apologized for that and let him know I would try to prepare him if I was going to make any changes. So I'm not giving in to him. All I'm doing is making his world a little more clear so that he can move through some situations with better ease. Because we can't always do this, but if we're able to take the time and look at things from our kids' perspective, then we may be at least like one step closer to connecting and helping them. And this is what gives me and has always given me this, because now he starts to feel I understand him and I give him space and he trusts me. So a lot of times he will start to process through some of the things that upset him or things that were hard for him throughout the school day. It's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to let our kid understand that we do see their perspective. Now, they're not alone in feeling and thinking these things, that we will listen to them. We're not going to let them win an argument, and that's not what it's about. It's about just connecting with them and letting them know that we understand so that they can open up to us and we can help them process through some of this stuff. So this is honestly the only way that I get information about school or what's going on. Because if I try to ask questions, and you've probably done this too, just asking specific questions, it's either he like pushes back or maybe he just doesn't quite connect to my questions. So I hear I don't know, or no big deal, or you wouldn't understand. I get those kinds of pushbacks. But what we're trying to do is ask our kids in maybe a different way by just listening to them. We don't have to ask them specifically. And this is kind of hard because it might just be like, oh, were there any changes today in any of your classes that were weird or hard? Maybe asking questions more specifically, because their brains are really working pretty hard and they may not be able to executively organize everything that's happened throughout the day to give you one specific experience or interaction. They may just be feeling it all wrapped up in one, which is huge. So sometimes just kind of asking, hey, if they had a test that day, say, how do you feel about that test? Did you take it? Did it seem really hard or easier than you expected? Little things like that to get the conversation going. So now when we're in the moment, so what happens? When our kid is freaking out, yelling and screaming at us, maybe even calling us names and just being nasty. Well, the first thing is to realize that they are now in an emotional, sensory overload. And at this point, time is your only friend when this happens. So think about it this way. If you say something, if you react, has it ever helped before? No, it's like feeding that alligator. It's probably going to make the situation more uncomfortable or even worse. So if your kid isn't hurting himself or hurting anyone else, it's probably best to step back and let him finish the meltdown. In the meantime, put yourself in a better position to tackle this situation by calming yourself down. How can you do this? Well, first you remove yourself from the situation. This is not personal. This is not about you. This is about them not being able to regulate emotions depending on whatever they're feeling, and they may not even know what happened to make them feel this way necessarily. They might just have a buildup, and these feelings are all coming out in a safe environment for them. So let's pick out a win. Hopefully they didn't do this at school. That's a win, right? They're doing this at home where they are safe and not judged. So another win is that they are allowing you to see this emotion, and that means they trust you. I have to be honest, this does take several times for them to realize that you are there for them. You're not going to judge them. You're not going to try to change them or fix them or make them feel like they're in the wrong. So this could take maybe 10, 20, 40 times before it becomes a little more smooth and you're able to process feelings and interactions and experiences with them. So I would like to wrap this concept up with 5 points, like 5 main points. So when a meltdown or screaming match happens, number one, think outside of your feelings to meet your kid where they are. Number two, remember to think this is communication. They are experiencing something that possibly hurts. It's possibly confusing or it doesn't make any sense to them. It may even be a new experience. Number three, remember this is not a personal attack. Number four, think of this as actually a positive thing and take a win out of this experience. Number five, this is very important, and I want you to remind yourself that you are a great mom. You are in control of your thoughts. You are emotionally well. You know how I know this? Because you are here and you want to help your kid become a strong, independent, and happy person. So I want to be your guide in this journey, and my aim is to point you in the right direction. But you and your situation are unique. So you will have to do some really hard work to make this happen. It's not easy, but you are strong. So let your supermom powers reveal themselves and embrace this journey.